Welcome to Cyclone InCYders. Yes, we're back this week. Normally scheduled InCYders episode. I got Logan and Aaron with me today. We're going to go over some Cyclones men's and women's basketball. Both have had interesting weeks filled with some ups and downs. We're going to go over that and more next on Cyclone InCYders. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. The Iowa State men's basketball team, guys, they almost had it. They were right there with Baylor, winning the majority of the game. Let it slip away at the final stretch of the game. Did you guys actually think that they were going to win that game yesterday against Baylor?
So I was hopeful. I never really for sure thought they were gonna win. But I just think it would have been great for this group of players after just this crappy season to finally get a win after some of the close games they've had, especially against the number 2 team of all teams, who, Baylor hadn't played in 3 weeks, but still that would have been a huge win. But yeah, I just with this group this season, I never feel fully confident that they're going to come out with a dub, and it really sucks for them with just this season not to pull it out, honestly.
Yeah, and even at halftime, they had a 5-point lead, but really I was never confident that they were going to be able to keep that or even pull off a win. And I think, what was it, only lost by 7 it was less than 10, something like that. And
5, yeah.
Yeah, there was no chance that we were going to win. It would have been very nice, but it was close after the half, and I just really didn't see them pulling it off.
Yeah, interesting enough, I actually just found this out before this started. The money line, the spread line during the game in the second half, even when Iowa State was up by 10, Baylor was still supposed to win by 7.5. That's how much other people didn't believe in Iowa State. But really, I think all you need to know is Iowa State was 7 from 10 for 3-pointers in the first half. I think it's safe to say that a team's not going to keep shooting like that in the second half. So once we kind of died down a little bit, Baylor kind of, got out of that early funk since they haven't played in a while. Things kind of reverted to normal. But other than that, it was definitely nice to see some positives from Iowa State. And, it really looked like they were gelling out there in that first half. But moving on, some people, in the Twitter in the Twitter mentions and stuff like that, they're saying Prome's the reason they lost that game. Prome's the reason we've lost all these other games. Do you guys think this team would really be better with a different coach? I mean, what's kind of wrong with Prome's coaching style, you think?
It's hard to say. They might have a few more wins this year with a different coach. That's all hearsay, but just there's a clear talent disparity between Iowa State and other teams. I don't think there'd be a huge difference with a different coach. But really, there's just too much ISO and hero ball that goes on with Iowa State. And some of that's on the players too, but I can't remember the last time I watched an out-of-bounds play from Iowa State and just thought it was a good, well-run play. And it seems like out of a timeout, they always find a way to end up with a turnover or a bad shot, and that's definitely coaching. And just, people transferring out of the program and recruits who leave early or go to the NBA, that's something that really needs to be fixed because Iowa State basketball is not one of these schools that can get by on recruits coming in and going to the NBA immediately. We need really good 4-year players that want to stick with the program. And that's hopefully something that we can get back to. That was the blueprint for success from the early 2010s all the way to just a few years ago.
Yeah, Aaron, I agree. I mean, there's definitely not a ton of coaching that can be fixed. There's definitely those issues here and there. But I also think that this is a very raw team. We're not going to be getting the 5 stars that the University of Duke is going to be able to get. But I just think that if we just give this team a couple more years to develop, I think we can see something special come out. And hopefully this is just a down sort of a rebuilding year for the program.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys 100%. When things go wrong, it's just immediately point fingers at the coach. And like my only thing like to move promo is just to like get a fresh start because it kind of gets hard when you had a couple of bad years in a row like that to kind of get out of that mindset. So that's like the only reason why I have a huge problem with prom. I mean, when I looked at the Big 12 statistics, we're last in every category except 3-point field goal percentage, we're eighth, and opponent 3-point field goal percentage, we're fourth. Other than that, turnovers, rebounding, scoring, we're last in everything. So it's kind of hard to argue. They put that all on the coach, you know what I mean? Like, we don't even have one facet of the game where we're good. So it's like, it gets really tough to make that argument when people just say it's all Prom's fault. But one bright spot, really bright spot for Iowa State, especially in that Baylor game, was Tyler Harris. 22 points, 5 for 8 from the field from 3-point land. Didn't turn over the ball at all. Do you guys think, what do you guys think? Is he the future for this Iowa State program?
Well, he was really hyped coming out of Memphis, and I really hope he sticks at Iowa State, but Iowa State's going to need a lot more than just Tyler Harris if he continues to play like this. And this whole season, he had a really good game yesterday, but averaging 7.5 points, 1.3 rebounds, less than 1 assist. And he shoots 35% from 3, which is fine, but only 39% from the field overall. But hopefully, next year we can see him in a regular season where hopefully there's not a pandemic next season, and get him a healthy Xavier Foster, Jaden Walker, who has kind of been in the doghouse the past couple games, but he definitely has potential as a big point guard. And then Tyrese Hunter, which kind of depends on what happens with Prome, but a really good 4-star coming into the program, 37th ranked prospect in the nation. But I think Tyler Harris definitely fits into the future of this team. I think the future of the team is going to be a lot more than just one player. We need to change a lot of things with this team to be successful.
Right, and I agree with you, Aaron. I don't really want this to become a one-man show, and all of our wins are depending on if one guy stands out. But I really think that him being a junior is going to help if he does decide to stay next year. He'll have that kind of leadership and experience that the younger guys don't really have and know about when it comes to playing NCAA basketball. But I really think that if we have healthier players and, a little bit of not of like an easier schedule, but such as like you were saying, a non-pandemic season, I think that we can really shine next year.
Logan, I love what you said about the one-man show, because the best Iowa State teams we've had in the past, we've never, really had that superstar. Last year, we had Tyrese, but our team was horrible. Like, the best teams we've had, we really had just an all-around solid squad. And I think, we just really can't look to that one person, especially in a conference like the Big 12. It gets hard to just have that one guy that's going to shine. And especially with Harris, he hasn't really shown his ability to be a floor general and kind of be that guy like Halliburton and Monte Morris was, who didn't turn the ball over and was making all these crazy passes. But not to say that won't come, but I'm just saying he still has a lot of work to do. And hopefully he can do that in the future to develop this Iowa State team to a new level. But another thing is, we got to talk about the downs of this team. Haven't won a conference game yet. 2 wins on the season. When you guys think of this team down the road in 20 years as one of the worst teams in Iowa State history, what is going to be the first thing that you remember in your mind with this team?
So, I'm obviously going to think about how it was just a weird COVID year for sure, but I'll also remember how potentially, it's not for sure yet, but depending on how the rest of the season goes, possibly my first semester at Iowa State, we had the worst team in school history. And that's really all there is to say about it. And like you hear a lot of the older Iowa State fans when they talk about the football team and how, despite how crap they were, they would still show up to the games back in the day. And it's just insane how good they are now. Hopefully I can have some stories like that for my kids one day where, it was a pandemic season and Iowa State had the worst team in school history. And then, 5-10 years later, we rose to glory or something like that. But really it's a depressing time right now, but I'm hoping we can, in the next couple of years, turn this thing around.
Yeah, and unfortunately with this pandemic season, you see a lot of teams around all leagues, the NFL, the NBA, NCAA, there are going to be teams that don't really adjust to what it's like doing this. And especially with Iowa State, this definitely is probably the worst team that they've had in school history. And it's just a very young and raw, talented team that, it just doesn't suit well with the fans. And you won't see a lot of people watching these games when it gets down to later in the second half. And I just think that hopefully in 20 years we're able to talk about how this was just a rebuilding year. Didn't adjust to a pandemic season as well as other teams, but as you were saying, hopefully a rise to glory in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I think that's a perspective that a lot of outsiders don't necessarily get about Iowa State. Like Ames, compared to a bunch of the other Big 12 schools and a lot of the larger programs in the Power 5 nationally, like we're a really small city compared to those. And like our family is so tight knit here that like we'll support teams no matter what. But like I'm telling you, when I say this team, it feels like to me has been bashed the most I've ever heard. Like people just won't even bother to watch the team anymore. And it's just kind of sad to see, where our fan base has came just from 10 years ago or even, a couple of years ago with this team. So hopefully we can get that kind of rolling back on the right track, but we'll see. However, Iowa State, maybe the easiest stretch of games they'll have in the Big 12 this season. We got winnable games coming up against TCU, K-State. Maybe they could even beat Texas Tech with them competing so well with Oklahoma and Baylor. Guys, what is Iowa State going to need to do to win a conference game and come out of this not winless?
Just finally close a game out, honestly. With the way they've been playing, it's possible, and just have to cut down on some of the turnovers in the hero ball at bad times of the game and be able to close the game out as a team. It can't be, Bolton going down to the court and taking a shot. It has to be, moving the ball around and getting teams out of position and just stepping on the other team's neck when you're up. And you have to do all the little things right when there's a talent disparity the way there is this season. And I'm hoping Iowa State can steal a win, maybe against a team like Texas Tech or something. That'd be really cool to see. But yeah, it just comes down to consistency from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think what's most important is just go out and play. I mean, the time for overthinking these games should be way behind you. I mean, you have to just give yourselves a chance like you did yesterday. Go out and just take advantage of the leads that you're given and just close games out. Like we had the opportunity to do that last night, but obviously with Baylor being such a great team, they're able to come back and win that. But these next three games are, from what we can understand, winnable games that we just need to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could bring up here that they need to do better. I mean, obviously a lot of things, but to me, there's two ways when you're a worse team that you could kind of control the game, and that's just not turning the ball over and giving the other team free chances. I mean, against Baylor, we had 17 turnovers. That's just like, oh, that's 17 possessions. You didn't even give it a shot up. You just gave the other team the ball. And then the other thing is just like, even when you do have a lead, just don't be hesitant on offense. And it seems like for us, we're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't win this game, so we're just gonna, start playing a little shy and start turning it over, not taking good shots. Like it's just like, just play how you normally do, and don't change that. But we can't tell them exactly what to do. We're not on the court with them. That's their job. Hopefully they'll get it done. We're fans. We definitely hope they do. But we will see if they can get pull one out here in the final stretch. Moving on, though, a little more promising on the women's side for Iowa State. They're kind of a little inconsistent as well. They got an off night here and there, but they're definitely more successful up there in towards the top of the Big 12 conference. What do you guys think this team's kind of missing to take that next step to the upper echelon?
Consistency, just night in and night out. Kind of the same problem as the men's side, just obviously a lot better season this year for the Iowa State women. But they have a game like tonight where they just absolutely blew West Virginia out of the water. But then there's games like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and even Texas where there's just a cold stretch and sometimes a size disparity inside that loses them the game. There's been a lot of bigs that have dominated Iowa State inside, which has really been a problem for them this year. So probably going to finish, fourth or fifth, middle of the conference. But it's it's just consistency. A lot like the men, got to play start to finish and not getting those cold stretches that come back to bite you.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to just not give the opponents the big leads towards halftime or, even in the middle of that second half. I mean, in the Oklahoma State game, they were down 20 points at one point and ended up only losing by 7. But it's like what you were saying, Aaron, just stay consistent, go out there and just play your hearts out. Don't give up the leads and just get out, try your best to get out with the win.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thing with the women's basketball team is like Ashley Jones. A lot of times that she's just not able to get it going. The offense struggles, and I mean that's just I don't know if they can change anything about that. I mean, it's just sometimes she's in foul trouble. Sometimes the other team's just focusing on her hard, and other players aren't able to knock down shots. But really, just for this team, it's just having those other people step up because. They've really been inconsistent. I mean, they were able to beat Baylor, one of the top ranked teams in the country. Then they come back and they get beat by Oklahoma State. Just kind of some teams that are a little subpar to them. But then they're able to compete almost every game. It's just like closing at the end, like we talked about. So, I mean, really just closing and other people hitting shots is going to help them a lot. But like we've said, probably going to finish 4th or 5th in the conference, behind Baylor and West Virginia, who they just beat tonight, ranked number 19, won by 15 points. What do you guys think Iowa State can do to maybe win a few more of those games that they've split with West Virginia and Baylor? What do you guys think they can do to win again when they play in the conference tournament?
So I think interior defense is a huge thing for this team. I've seen them in person twice this year, and they were against South Carolina and Texas, and they were just getting eaten up inside. And, they have some size. I think Kristen Scott is like 6'3", but she's not really a true forward. She's more of a perimeter player. She can get some buckets inside, but they're kind of missing that big forward that a lot of other teams around the country have. So it takes a lot more of a team effort to just make sure you're communicating and shutting down those shots in the paint. And then, just like we said earlier, just consistency and contributing all across this team. When Ashley Jones has to take a seat for a few minutes, the offense can't just die for those few minutes that she's off the court. And it comes down to, some of the freshmen who have been getting experience all season. Hopefully they're ready to go for conference tournament and then NCAA tournament time. And really show the true potential of this Iowa State team, because I don't think they've reached their potential yet.
Yeah, for sure. I can agree with that. And I also think it's important to look at past inconsistencies. So if you look at a close game like the Oklahoma one, we only lose by 2 points. Very close game. But then when you look at Kansas, who is one of the latter teams in the Big 12 Conference, we only win by 2. I think it's just a matter of beating the unranked teams by a larger margin and kind of getting those important wins to send a message, just kind of saying, hey, we're here to compete. And like you were saying, Aaron, to kind of play better than the standard that they've already set and reach their true potential.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got the nail on the head, or nail on the head right there. It's just, Iowa State, when it comes down to it, these teams, they're bigger, but we just gotta, go out there and battle and try to limit the playing side, because like Aaron said, I mean, we're not as big as other teams, not as physical. We just got to find other ways to beat them. And Fennelly, I have full faith in him and that he'll be able to get that done. But looking ahead to the NCAA tournament, we kind of talked about how they don't size up very well. What kind of matchup do you think does suit Iowa State the best if we are looking to the NCAA tournament?
Just like what I was saying about teams with bigs, honestly, any team that doesn't have a dominant big is a good matchup for Iowa State. Just looking at some of the bigs they faced this year, some of the better ones. Charlie Collier from Texas, in her 2 matchups against Iowa State, had 22 points and 19 rebounds and 14 points and 14 rebounds. Nalissa Smith from Baylor had 20 points and 10 rebounds and 14 points and 12 rebounds. And Aaliyah Boston from South Carolina had 13 points and 15 rebounds in their one game against each other. So it's just players like that that have really been controlling the game against Iowa State. They get a lot of offensive rebounds and then leads to second chance points for those teams. And it's just going to take a huge team effort. And I just calling back to some of the men's basketball teams where we really didn't have a lot of size. And against players like Embiid and like Perry Ellis, it took team play from the men's team and just don't get into foul trouble. And I think it's going to be kind of the same thing for the women's team. Just make sure you play well as a team and communicate and don't allow those rebounds and second chance points that have been killing them in some games this year against these teams that have dominant bigs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely have to look at your weaknesses and see how you can use them against the other teams that you're going to be facing in either whether it be the Big 12 tournament or the NCAA tournament. But I looked at bracketology, they had us going up against Syracuse, which looking at them record wise, kind of a similar record. They've also, as we've seen throughout all leagues, they've dealt with postponements and cancels. So this could end up being a very raw team that we go up against that we could take advantage of in maybe the first or second round. But I think it's important that we just kind of keep that in the back of our heads right now and just finish the season strong so we can kind of get up in the higher seed, maybe not have to face teams with better bigs in the first round.
Yeah, I think a huge thing, especially when it comes to one game elimination like the tournament, just don't be something you're not. Iowa State, they're last in the Big 12 in steals, fifth in rebounds. They're not a tremendous defensive team, but what they are really good at, second in offense in the Big 12. They score 77 points per game. I mean, they're gonna be outscoring their opponents. It's not just necessarily limiting them. It's just holding them on defense. And being able to outscore them, because at the end of the day, just don't pretend to be something you're not, I guess is what I'm getting at. But this game that we just talked about where they beat West Virginia by 15, it was senior night. We got some seniors leaving. What do you guys think this team is going to miss when they are gone after this year?
I think just the overall leadership of the group and players who have been there and done that are invaluable for this freshman group in particular this year because there's a lot of freshmen getting significant playing time, and I'm sure they've looked to those seniors for leadership and guidance. And, you have a scorer and good leader in Kristen Scott and someone like Ray Johnson who can come off the bench. She's a good ball handler who can distribute and get some buckets and just keep the offense moving along when someone like Ashley Jones is off the court. And then a player in Maddie Wise who the season maybe hadn't gone the way she'd hoped it would, but when she's on the court, she sets a good example and does the right thing. So really, I think this is a group that could leave a huge impact on the freshmen this year over the next 4 years, just seeing how they've carried themselves and finish their career at Iowa State.
Right. And so if we look at the roster, there's only three seniors, and then looking even further, there's one junior. So this, as you can see, it's a very raw team, very young team that can develop over the next few years. And I think that just having those seniors, they've been able to, like you're saying, Aaron, look up to them as leaders. And I think we'll definitely miss that next year, but it'll also show in the freshmen and sophomores that will be just coming back to the program next year and treating or showing that same kind of mentality and leadership that they were taught to the incoming freshmen.
Yeah, Christian Scott, she's going to be a huge one to try to replace. I mean, 11.6 points per game, 5.8 rebounds. She's really, not counting Ashley Jones, she's really our major post presence, but she plays well from the outside. I mean, she's shooting 41% from deep. That's absolutely insane for a big in college. So she's definitely going to be missed. They're going to need somebody to step up in the post next year for sure, because right now their backups are not going to be able to get it done. But Maddie Wise and Ray Johnson, as much as they're not talked about, they're really solid role players that provide that leadership off the bench. And Ray Johnson's a great shooter. I do know that. I think she shoots well above 35%. She might be even up there towards 40. And then Maddie Wise, really just kind of a do-it-all player. She can score, rebound, pass. And she's, been one of those people that have provided for Iowa State this whole time. So they're definitely going to be tough to replace, but if they keep bringing in top recruiting class like this past year, I think they'll be all right. But as Logan talked about in the last bracketology, I've kind of seen some mixtures. It looks like they're kind of on that 7-8 line. You guys think they're worthy of a 7 seed, or do you think they should be higher, lower?
I think 7 sounds about right there. From the way they perform this season, they kind of slot in as a mid-level team, but they do have, signature wins like Baylor and the win against West Virginia tonight. But then there's also the losses against Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, close game against Kansas that kind of cancel those out. But if they finish the season strong, that especially that Baylor game and this West Virginia game tonight are going to help them a lot for where they get placed. But if the season ended right now, I would say a 7 or 8 seed sounds accurate.
Right, and I was just saying how if you really look at it, like you were saying, Aaron, other than the Baylor and the West Virginia win tonight, there aren't that many significant wins compared to the losses. But the 7-8 seed range is right where I think they'll land, and maybe the next couple games will either raise that or lower that. But as of right now, if like you were saying, Aaron, I think if it ended right now, a 7 or 18 as well, a respectable seed for them.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. If they're the 8 or 9 seed, they got to play the 1 seed the next round if they win. And in women's basketball, I mean, yeah, they did beat Baylor, but it's just like there's almost a disparity and less chance of an upset in women's basketball. I feel like those 1 seeds have not gone down as often, or not 1 seeds, like 2 and 3 seeds as they have in men's. But, if they win a couple more in the conference tournament, they could get up to a 7, hopefully, and kind of boost their odds at making a better run. So we hope the best for them. They have 1 more game left against Kansas next Wednesday on March 3rd. So we'll make sure to keep you posted on that. But both teams are going to be starting conference play here soon. So that's make or break time. If you can go on a streak and win it, you're automatic bid. So we'll make sure to keep you posted on that. But coming up on Cyclone InCYders, we got a special topic. We're going to talk about relocation of sports franchises. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Catch you back.
Playing video games with Vlad Guerrero, hitting dingers for the Expos, and just those jerseys are absolutely beautiful. But I do want to give a shout out to the Houston Oilers and the Vancouver Grizzlies because those jerseys are beautiful as well. But the Montreal Expos are one of those really nostalgic baseball teams, and I think it'd be really cool if Montreal got a team again in the MLB.
I will have to go with the Seattle Supersonics. I think basketball team in Seattle would be great for them. They could do something cool, bring back the uniforms, maybe do some new ones, some throwbacks. Really doesn't matter. But to even it out, I do think that cities that are important to have a basketball team are either Nashville or Pittsburgh. I think that the fans would really love a team there. But definitely the Supersonics. I think that'd be a great team to bring back.
All right, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Aaron took the Expos from me. Oh, God, baseball. Here's the thing with the Expos that a lot of people don't realize is their TV market. It just wasn't even a thing when they played, unfortunately, and that's. They couldn't get a new stadium, which sucked, and then their TV market sucked. It was just Montreal wasn't ready really for a city or for a sports team at that point, but now, especially with the success we've seen Toronto have, they're ready now and they need an organization back. But I wanted to go with the Bobcats as much as I did, just because I got an Adam Morrison jersey with the Bobcats. Just for the memes, I had it. But besides that, because I thought one of you guys were going to say that one too, I got maybe the best name I saw when I was looking at the list. The Providence Steamroller. Now, the Steamroller joined the NFL in 1925 and finished under 500 just twice in 7 years and won the 1928 NFL title. But they ran out of steam after the 1931 season as fan interest declined because of the Great Depression. Guys, Rhode Island used to have a professional sports team. Bring him the Steamroller back. Let's go. Okay, moving on. That was kind of lying. I'm not even, though. Don't give Rhode Island a team. What cities though do deserve a franchise, and why do you think that though?
So I kind of have an OKC bias, and Oklahoma City already has a sports team, but Tulsa does not. And they are the home of the Los Angeles Dodgers affiliate. And I know, on this podcast, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, they're big rivals, but as a Thunder fan, when I go to Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, they are so passionate there. And it's actually kind of insane how Oklahoma City has been able to build such a brand, and obviously that was helped with players like Durant and Westbrook and Harden, but that town is not that big compared to all the other NBA cities. So I think a city like Tulsa would actually support an NFL team really well because they are just fanatics there. And the passion they have for their college teams, I think, would translate straight to uh, any professional team really in Tulsa.
Now, my idea is it's probably the most far-fetched one because of just the commissioner of this league and how I don't think he would ever even think about adding a team in this. But I think the NFL needs to bring a team to Canada. A team or a city like Vancouver or Toronto, I think would love a team, and it would bring in more fans. And you see the success that Toronto has had with the Raptors and how much love that they have in Canada for basketball. And I just think it'd be a great idea to bring in more fans and, you know what, probably even some more money for old Commissioner Goodell.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird when people say like they're gonna be going to London, but like Canada and Mexico, Mexico City, I can definitely like understand because they're like connected and the travel wouldn't be that horrible, really. But I'm gonna go with one that I think realistic, good money maker, big city. We check all the boxes. I'm going with Austin, Texas. Guys, everything's bigger in Texas. We got the Longhorns already in the town. We see how much love they get across the nation. I just think, there could be room for another team in Texas, and especially with, we get a team in Vegas, we got a team in LA. I just think kind of we're heading towards that way, definitely, of kind of, placing all of our cities in large markets. And it makes it tough nowadays for those small market teams. So I think you really can't have a relocation team without having a massive city. So I'm gonna go with Austin, Texas. I think that's the best one. But here's the one that all the Iowa State fans have been waiting for. Do you guys think Iowa, most likely Des Moines, would be able to realistically hold a professional sports team? Why or why not?
Um, it's like really hard because obviously we want to think that Iowa could hold a sports team because we want a professional sports team in Iowa. But I just don't know if the market would be able to compete. I think, Iowa State fans are really passionate, Iowa fans are really passionate. I think it would translate to an NFL team. But it's really is a matter of the market. And I don't know exactly how Des Moines compares to the smaller markets. Like obviously Green Bay is tiny. And like I mentioned, Oklahoma City, not that big either, but uh, it would take just like some crazy money from an owner in Iowa or even a collective of some people with deep pockets in the state of Iowa to buy a team. And I know the what's his name, Kevin Kraus. He's the CEO of Come and Go. He just bought Parma Calcio in Italy, and he wants to bring a professional soccer team to Iowa. So maybe even if it's not like NFL, MLB, or NBA, we could have like a soccer team in Des Moines. But yeah, it's kind of just dreaming about it right now. But it would be really cool to see sometime in the future if some people with deep pockets can get together and make it happen.
Yeah, and I really like how you hit on the financial side, Aaron. I just think that although we would love one of the big three sports to come to Iowa, and we'd just be huge fans of them, I just don't think that we'd be able to do it. And I think if you grew up around the Des Moines area, you really just don't know where a stadium of that size would be able to go in Des Moines, and how many, you don't want to be the laughing stock of the league when you do join it and hear about, oh yeah, they were in this league for like 3 years and then no one went to their games, so they just had to dismantle. So I just think ultimately, no, it's not a great idea. We're too versatile, and maybe a football team would be like the most interesting, but for Iowans to watch. But I just think that it just ultimately wouldn't work.
Yeah, Des Moines, like I just looked up, they're like 70th in the largest city, so they're definitely smaller market. But like compared to Green Bay, they're double the size. But with Green Bay, they were there at like the start of the AFL NFL merger, and like they've been there for so long. Like, they kind of have like that fandom of like football sacred here, kind of thing that like it just isn't possible in today's world. And another thing with like Des Moines is like I don't feel like they have the sponsorship ability. Like there's Wells Fargo and stuff down there, but just like I don't feel like there's that many companies that in Iowa that would be able to sponsor them, and hold a professional sports team. Because like nowadays you see whoever just like sponsor like their names before the stadium all the time. It's just like I don't think that can happen in Iowa. But we do love the dream. Hope one day, probably not going to happen, but we do love the dream. I'll continue doing it on video games while I can. But what would you guys choose? Interesting topic. What would you guys choose to name the team if one was to come to Iowa?
So the Des Moines Demons were a minor league baseball team back in the day. I believe they were an affiliate for the St. Louis team, whatever they were called back then, and also for the Philadelphia Phillies, or maybe they weren't called the Phillies back then, but whatever the Philadelphia team was. So I think it'd be cool to, if we did somehow get a professional team, just bring back the Des Moines Demons moniker. But there could also be some things like related to the state of Iowa and the agriculture. But just the history that Des Moines has with demons and the jerseys back then looks really cool. I think that'd be a cool one to bring back.
Yeah, and I think if we look at like other NFL teams, we could see stuff like whatever the owners' names, the last names of the owners would be, or whatever they would really be able to pick. But if we kind of look at joke names, I think that like the Iowa or Des Moines flyovers would be kind of funny. Just who really notices Iowa? You just fly over it every time whenever you're going to who knows Florida or wherever you're going, and something to do with corn, like you were saying, Aaron, like the agriculture and bio or just whatever would work. And I think if a sports team ever comes to Iowa, then they whatever league it is in must be down bad if they want to come to Des Moines, Iowa to have their next franchise start.
Yeah, as much as we want to bash the farming, I mean the Des Moines corn stalks, Des Moines beans. No, just isn't gonna work. What we really gotta hone in is just an animal and whatever sounds cool with Des Moines. So like, I feel like eagles. We could go with eagles. We could go with the
Des
I don't
Moines
know,
Dingoes.
dingo. Oh, with the D.